Hi there, everyone. This is Jennifer Clark. I'm Principal Analyst with Heavy Reading, and I'm here today to talk about adapting to what's next in an always-on world. With me today is Rebecca Prudhomme, who's the VP of Portfolio Marketing at Ciena. Welcome, Rebecca.
Jennifer, thank you so much. It's great to chat with you today.
So, the carriers are experiencing a world of change, with enterprise workloads sprinting to the cloud at this point, with broadband residential networks suddenly functioning as enterprise networks, with traffic loads shifting from evening to day. And if your teenager is anything like mine, they're playing Fortnite while another child is streaming some obscure Jim Carrey movie, and you're conducting a Zoom or Team or BlueJean or WebEx meeting. So if we've learned anything over the past few months, it is that without the network, we are in deep, deep trouble, even more so than we are right now. Rebecca, are you experiencing some of the same things in your world?
Yeah, I think we may have the same teenager living in both of our households. I have a 16-year-old, and if he's not online learning, and I would rather him be more online learning, he's online gaming. Like you, working from home globally, managing all of that. But I think what's actually really interesting, not only are we just consuming more bandwidth, I think what's really interesting is just the change in behavior, right? So whereas I think everybody had always done, a little online shopping, it's amazing how much of the household is now just online. And when we talk about this always on world, it feels like that maybe used to be some hyperbole before. And now it's like we're living it. It's real. So definitely I'm feeling what you're experiencing as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I've looked at some of the statistics of just some commodities that were purchased online at the very beginning of the year, and how the percentage by which online purchase has grown over the past 2 months. And these things, and we're not talking toilet paper and hand sanitizer, we're talking things like hair coloring and tools for the garden. They've grown by a factor of 5 or 10 over the past a couple of months. So indeed, we are much more of an online world right now. So as we, with Ciena being one of the leading global network software and services provider in the market, what are you seeing happening in the networks today from a business perspective?
So I think definitely everything we've just been talking about in our personal and our work from home lives, it's playing out across the industry. And, not only are we seeing our customers, the network providers, dealing with more demand, more pressures on the network. Those industry stats you mentioned just kind of speak for themselves. Zoom traffic in the US has increased by like 700%. That's phenomenal. Internet traffic, right, in the U.S. and in Europe is at more than 30% on fixed networks. That's a phenomenal jump. And we were talking about our kids and gaming. There's a 90% average increase in traffic from gaming apps. So it's we're seeing these pressures, and it's both residential consumers and it's enterprise, right? Microsoft Teams, for example, right? More than 44 million daily users. That is generating over 900 million meetings and calling minutes. That's crazy. So as people are leaning on these collaboration tools, as people are going online for all of their entertainment needs, all of their daily lives are being ran online, we're definitely seeing that play out in the pressures of the network. Now, from our perspective, from Ciena's perspective, as this pressure is building, this concept of the adaptive network, which we've been talking about for a couple of years now, actually in the market, it's become more relevant than ever before. And what's really great is that we're seeing more and more of our customers, the network providers, really seeking out, how do I get there? How do I start to realize this future end state of networking that's called the adaptive network?
Okay, excellent points. So And I think one of the most important ones is even with the way that networks are provisioned today, which is a lot of the what used to be called the core network is very over provisioned, or it's a very robust network. But there are choke points available at a multiple points in the network, and the ability to pivot on a dime in response to some of the demands that we're seeing as a result of whatever. Could be a virus. It could be a national. It could be a fiber-seeking backhoe. It could be another national or natural disaster. It could be anything. Um, so, tell me, since the ability to adapt quickly is at the core of what we need as we move forward, can you tell me a little bit more about how you define the adaptive network and what Ciena means by that?
For sure. So the adaptive network, it's kind of beautiful in its concept because it's simplistic and it's very intuitive. And it really, if you think about an adaptive network, you need to have this infrastructure, right? The optical and the packet infrastructure that is really sensing what's happening in the network, and it's able to dynamically scale. And it's both physical and virtual service or virtual resources here we're talking about. So understanding what's happening on the network, picking up those pressure points, gathering that telemetry, and then serving that information, that data up into an analytics engine that can operationalize that data using machine learning, artificial intelligence, and then based on user-defined policies, the policies that are determined by the provider based on their business objectives, using that analysis, that analytics, taking that into automation and control, and then start to truly close the loop, if you will, on managing the network in an automated way, in a seamless way. So it's gathering the information about what's happening on the network at the infrastructure level, digesting that and analyzing it and operationalizing it so that you can start to automate and control your network in a much more agile way, right? So that you are able to make those not just fast decisions, but the right decisions about where network resources need to be scaled up or scaled down. So even in situations where there's sufficient capacity in a network, it's more like, okay, where do these resources need to be allocated to best serve the end user? And I think that's what's making this very topical right now, based on everything that's happening in our industry.
Absolutely. And it sounds like one of the key elements of the adaptive network is we're not talking about, the adaptive branch office network or the adaptive enterprise domain. We're talking about a holistic approach to the network overall and the ability to take in data points from multiple areas.
Yes, exactly.
Mm-hmm. So can you describe some of the pain points that your customers are dealing with and how Ciena is helping with these?
Yeah, so first, looking at how they can efficiently scale their network, right? Based on some of those industry stats we talked about at the beginning, they have to figure out a way to, scale up and scale down, turn up services, turn down services. And how do they do that with limited fiber availability and the high cost of new fiber? It's really driving new ways for them to look at how do they get that capacity out of their network. And there's a couple of things that we've recently brought to market that are really addressing this capacity issue. The first is with our WaveLogic 5 Extreme solution. This offers programmable 800 gig coherent optical technology. And not only is that, an industry first to have that available, and this is something that we're actually selling today, it's commercially available. It gives them that capacity and that programmability, right, from 200 gig to 800 gig in those increments, and really be able to reach this maximum capacity, but with less hardware, less energy, and really a reduced cost per bit. And so that is both satisfying their need for more capacity, programmable capacity, but at the same time address the economics of the business. The second thing that we're doing as well is we're helping our customers get more capacity out of their existing fiber assets by offering a photonic line solution that allows them to expand usable spectrum of their fiber to the L band. And I know this has been a growing topic in the industry, right? We talk about C and L band, but the challenge has been that L band deployments have been somewhat limited to date because it's been traditionally very complex, right? To go in and use the L band. It's cumbersome to deploy, requires site visits to upgrade equipment, and you need to have certain engineering expertise, et cetera. And what we are actually offering on our 6500 reconfigurable line system is an integrated C and L band solution that overcomes a lot of these traditional challenges with expanding to the L band. So basically what we're allowing is you can double the fiber capacity, make it easy to deploy, and adding L band channels has zero impact on the existing C band wavelengths. So basically the line system comes pre-configured to support C and L band, and when you're ready to expand to the L band, it's just like turning it on. And so this is one of the key innovations we think that are really going to help our customers get more from their fiber capacity.
Wow, that's great. So really lowering a lot of the barriers to deploying L band and putting it, allowing your customers to activate it really on an ad hoc basis when they hit that point where they need more capacity on those connections.
Exactly. Yeah.
So shifting gears for a moment and thinking about the mobile domain, how is everyone on their mobile devices right now, and service providers, how are they evolving from 4G to 5G, and what investments has Ciena made to support that?
So I think it's interesting that you mentioned the evolution from 4G to 5G, because I think even though we are seeing the 5G deployments become real in the industry, and it's great to see new 5G services come into the market, the reality is for some time we're going to live in this 4G 5G hybrid world, and there will be this ongoing evolution from 4G networks to 5G. And this is something we're very conscious of, right? How do you support both a 4G and a 5G environment? You want to keep the services that you offer on 4G and 5G seamless to your customer, and you want to do this in a cost-effective way, right? You can't have multiple infrastructure supporting so many different types of services. And so thinking about that and talking to a lot of our customers, one of the key enhancements we've made to our existing 5G solution is we've introduced our first family of routers. And they're specifically designed for 4G and 5G converged xHaul transport. Now, in addition to this, we also did some enhancements to our Blue Planet automation capabilities. But these routers are interesting, and maybe we can talk about some of the automation capabilities in a minute. But the routers are very interesting because they are kind of designed to support the 4G and 5G on a common transport network. And it's designed to be open, simpler, and this is really important because it allows, as we just talked about, allows the mobile network operator to support both 4G and 5G services while laying the network infrastructure foundation to facilitate the rollout of standards-based network slicing, advanced 5G services. So we think this is really important. What we're really hearing from the market is we have to live through this 4G, 5G hybrid world, and providing solutions that make sense for our customers to do that.
Fascinating. So Ciena's now in the router business, and there are not a lot of folks out there using Apple Talk or Token Ring. So a router that is simplified for integration into this 4G, 5G hybrid environment is, and yet with a more focus specifically on that task, is something that's going to be very useful for our carriers out there. So it sounds like automation is a key to what we're looking at here. It's been a key topic for the network providers as they're feeling pressure to improve their operational efficiencies. Can you give us a little bit of a perspective on what what Ciena's take on this is?
Yeah, and I mentioned a minute ago that as part of our 5G, some enhancements to our 5G solution is we introduced automation capabilities specifically around that. And if you just think about what's happening in our industry, especially with 5G, there are so many use cases for 5G. There will be so many new types of services. It's going to enable, we're going to really see that tipping point with IoT, et cetera, being brought on by 5G. And the reality is all of those services and use cases that 5G will enable for the end user, they really can't be handled by the very manual, fragmented operating systems that we see, right? That's the way our industry has evolved. So legacy OSS is really complicated. And so one of the things as we were thinking about 5G and talking to our customers is, how can we help the automation, the operationalization, if you will, of 5G? And some of the things that we've introduced are around planning of the network. So how do you achieve dynamic planning so that you can roll out multi-vendor 5G front haul, mid haul, and backhaul networks more efficiently? The other thing that we're looking at from an automation perspective, and we build a solution around, is network slicing. So helping the mobile network operators monetize the 5G network, right? So that's another thing is you want to have in the 5G world, the expectation is that there will be certain service level of agreements attached to certain types of services. And ideally, the service provider can charge based on the service level agreement. But how do you operationalize that, right? So this is our 5G network slicing automation solution is around that. It's specifically focused on that. How do you automate, slicing the network, being able to monetize that, and really help our customers realize the business potential of their 5G investments?
Yeah, fascinating. So the carrier has to be able to create a network slice, if you will, specific to something like an IoT application that may require low latency, but may have a low bit rate, and requires a certain amount of service level that's targeted at either latency or response time. But they may need a totally different network slice that's associated with overall enterprise traffic, or an application such as a connected car, not even a self-driving car, but a connected car where you're streaming possibly a lot of video to the back seat, and it's looking for a specific type of a network slice. So that'll be very, very interesting to the carriers, I'm sure. And now I know that many of our listeners are not surprised to hear that Ciena has been doing a lot in the programmable infrastructure, advanced optics, and packet platforms have been part of your wheelhouse for a long time. But as part of Ciena's adaptive network approach, you mentioned that you're also investing in operational focused elements, and I assume this requires some advanced analytics. So what type of investment is Ciena making there?
Yeah, definitely. We're looking at analytics. Analytics is something that we almost see being pervasive, right, across the operations of a network, right? It's not like you look at analytics once and it goes away, but it's something that it touches so many elements of the network. But more specifically, in terms of our strategy, Blue Planet, which is a division of Ciena, we recently acquired Ciena. Now, Ciena is a specialist in multi-domain, multi-layer service assurance, and that's something else that we really recognize is this close relationship between analytics and being able to do network and service assurance. You can't have assurance without the analytics component of it. And so, what we're seeing is that in most networks where you're looking at multiple layers, potentially in multiple different domains, oftentimes to do assurance requires the correlation of different alarms, different systems, and it's a very fragmented approach. And what we're doing is we're leveraging the Ciena capabilities and providing more of a unified view to multi-layer assurance. So it is not so manual. You know, we talked about the challenges of most operating systems today is that they're very manual, very siloed. So we're always looking at solutions that bring that single pane of glass, that unified view, so that you can pinpoint an alarm, and not only pinpoint where the alarm is coming from quickly across multiple layers and multiple domains, but then also be able to do that root cause analysis. And this is where there's that marriage of analytics and assurance. And we really believe it's this type of proactive network operations that will help realize that reduction in OpEx for service providers. And at the end, you know, we're all users of a network, right? We're looking for that better user experience as individuals, right? So, you know, when network providers can get to that seamless automated assurance that's based on, you know, artificial intelligence and machine learning, the end user experience changes. And in today's really competitive market, that almost seems to be your differentiator, right? Is that ultimate experience you can deliver to your customer.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's how we're measuring success, certainly. And as we look down the road towards 5G, towards IoT, we're seeing the number of base stations multiply 10x from where they are today over the next 5 to 10 years. So as you say, you cannot manage those the same way, and the number of devices that they represent the same way that you're managing them today. That increased analytics, increased automation is definitely required. So, you know, I'm seeing how the elements of the Ciena adaptive network are working together with programmable infrastructure, analytics, intelligence, control, and automation. So what has been the response from your customers on these advances so far, and the evolution to the adaptive network?
So I think what's really interesting about the adaptive network, right? It's this target end state that, you know, we really believe network providers need to get to, right? It's this more agile, smarter end state and how they think about and build their networks and manage them for that matter. But what's interesting is that the adaptive network will look different for every provider out there, mainly because every network provider, every service provider has their own unique business objectives. And they also have their own very unique environments, right? Over years, the network has evolved in different ways and for different reasons and shapes and everything else for different service providers. So what we've seen is that there is no standard way to get, there's no standard path or blueprint that says follow these steps and you will get to the adaptive network. We are really seeing our customers come to us and say, you know, we want to get started in moving towards an adaptive network vision. We embrace that vision. We get it. We resonate with, that's where we want to go. Help us understand our starting point. And I think the starting point for every service provider will be different. And I have a couple of really great examples because you can come at the adaptive network, you know, from the infrastructure, from the automation, from the analytics angle, and eventually you're evolving your network to get you to that state that is more adaptive. So a good example, let's take Telefonica UK. This is actually a recent customer announcement. This is more on the packet side, so more on the infrastructure. They had a legacy TDM infrastructure, and they want to get to a next generation IP network. But at the same time, they don't want to sacrifice some of the existing services running on that TDM infrastructure, right? So we're providing them a solution that's based on what we call adaptive IP, which is the way we approach IP from a Ciena standpoint, and really helping them make that transition and migrate their legacy TDM traffic to a modern packet network. Specifically at the heart of this is our 6500 PTS. That's the solution, leveraging our adaptive IP, which is, you know, a lean set of IP protocols. It includes automation, leveraging capabilities from our Blue Planet division, and really helping them start on that path. So it's a great example of coming at it from the infrastructure layer. How do we start our customers to evolve them to something that is modern, automated, open? And I think Telefonica, this is it's an interesting example. Now, another way you could come at it is, as I mentioned, is from more of the automation, more of the operation perspective. And Electronet, which is a Brazilian network provider who offers long distance, high speed IP transit and data transport services to like ISPs and value added service providers. They had something very interesting happen in their network. In March of this year, March of 2020, they saw their IP traffic grow by more than 70%, like phenomenal growth in their IP traffic. And they took a solution of ours from our Blue Planet group called Route Optimization and Analysis. Okay, so this sits in that, if you think about the components of the adaptive network, this is an analytics and intelligence solution. It basically allows you, think of it as almost like ways for your IP network, for your layer 3 network, right? It shows you those blockages. Where do you have bottlenecks in your network? Where should resources be reallocated to so that you can avoid those blockages or address those blockages? And this has made a big difference for them in helping them think through how to manage this huge influx in their IP traffic, start to identify trends in these new traffic patterns, right? I think this is something that if you talk to any provider right now, not only are they seeing a surge in traffic, but it's very different traffic patterns than they've ever seen before. So, you know, like, and we can thank our teenagers and all of us working from home and everything else, right? For those unpredictability and traffic patterns. So really helping them see the trends, plan, and then design for their capacity expansions. So this is another very interesting path, right? A different starting point to the adaptive network, coming at it from more of an analytics perspective in the operational space of the network. So I think these are two really great examples, recent examples of where, you know, our customers are really like, hey, that adaptive network, it makes a lot of sense. And there's some very practical, pragmatic approaches to starting on that journey to the adaptive network.
So 70% growth in traffic from March on. That's enough to keep any operator up and worrying about how to deal with these changes in traffic and traffic patterns, as you mentioned, Rebecca, as well. One of the things that I've learned in my research over as a result of what we are seeing with not only COVID-19, but a number of other elements of change that are moving the network, such as cloud native computing and also the movement of workloads to the cloud, is that the types of changes that we're seeing right now are not going to go away when we start going back to a more physical environment and away from this virtual meetings, et cetera. That a lot of the gains that we have made in terms of remote learning and remote conferencing, those are going to become ingrained in our day-to-day lives, and we are going to continue to see this change in traffic pattern permeate our existence on a day-to-day basis long after we have discovered a vaccine and have moved away from some of the pressures that we're seeing as a result of the pandemic. So what we are talking about here with programmable infrastructure combined with analytics and intelligence and enabled by control and automation, this is something that's going to be more and more required as we look forward to the network in the next 2 to 5 years and beyond. So, Rebecca, I want to thank you very, very much for your insights, and I think these are insights that we can carry forward as we move out of the pandemic stage and into a more open environment over the next couple of months.
I agree. Jennifer, it's been so nice chatting with you today. Thank you.
Thank you.